Welcome to Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Once again, this is a podcast meant to highlight African American men and their story to success and over all the things that have overcome to get to that point where they are right now. I want to thank my co-host, Brother E.J. Stewart. Thank our sponsor, J. Pope and Associates, Mental Health Association of Mental Health services that are provided for individuals who are in need of counseling. So if you need that information will be listed below, because we are a proponent of mental health and making sure that you are mentally well in this day and age. I want to thank Brother Jovan Custis for coming on and joining us on the podcast today. And right now, I'm just going to throw it over to him and let him tell you a little bit about himself and where he is currently.
Thank you, Dwayne and EJ, for your kind invitation to be with you all tonight. It's my joy and my distinct privilege to have this conversation with you all. So again, I am Jovan Custis. I'm a native of Pennsylvania. I grew up right outside of Philadelphia and was transitioned here to Baltimore, Maryland in 2007, where I began my undergraduate career at the illustrious, the one and only Morgan State University.
Oh yes,
and it was yes, sir. I bleed orange and blue, and I'm a bear all day, proud of it. And so I matriculated through Morgan State, and Dwayne and EJ. It was really my thought process that I would get my undergraduate degree, and then transition back to Pennsylvania to work and to live. But really, around my junior year at Morgan, and my degree was in psychology. During my junior year of Morgan, really felt impressed that Baltimore was going to be my home, and started making preparations and plans to stay here in Baltimore. And so graduated magna cum laude and with a degree in psychology in May of 2011, and immediately started working at the Kennedy Krieger Institute. I served at Kennedy Krieger. I worked primarily in my first 3 months there in our neurobehavioral inpatient unit. So these are some of the most severe cases of cognitive, physical disabilities, and it was transitioned to our outpatient unit. And so I've done behavioral therapy, certified and licensed. I've done some social work. I've done some state agency work for the state of Maryland. And then I stumbled across career and youth development with the Wagon Central, Maryland, where I'm currently in, and I serve as one of the new associate executive directors of school partnerships. And so my career path is really dedicated to youth, really have a passion for young people, but personally, going back to one of your earlier questions, never even thought I would be in Baltimore. Didn't know anything about Baltimore. Had never heard of Morgan State. So it's just amazing to me how someone who never heard of an area has fallen in love with it and decided to stay. And so again, I came in 2007. It's 2021, and I don't have any plans to leave. So yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. So you say you grew up in Philly, right?
I did. So
okay.
let me qualify my statement.
Okay. Because you either grew up this side, you got different sides of town now. I don't want you to get in trouble.
I don't want anyone from Philadelphia to watch this and be disillusioned. My family is from Philadelphia, and I'll just give you the backstory. We lived in Philadelphia until I was in kindergarten, and believe me, the way I was a terror in kindergarten, terror. So I was getting in fights almost every day, and it was bad. And so my mom said, "You know what? We're going to the suburbs." So we moved to a suburb of Philadelphia called Upper Darby, and nobody ever knows where that is. So I just say Philadelphia.
I know where it is.
I do too.
So I had
Upper
two
Darby
worlds, right? Family that was still in Philadelphia, but me growing up in the suburbs. So my life had a dual experience. Grandparents in Philly, family members in Philly, but I lived in a place that had a yard and a backyard, most of my life. And so talking about my story, so my story is a little bit different, and I don't use this term lightly, but I was, growing up, people's expectation and the stigma is that if you're a young Black man, you don't have a father in the home, right? Or you don't have connections. That wasn't my story. My father is and has always been a vital role in my life. And so, and not only did I have a good father, I had great uncles, right? So I had really strong male presence in my life and real strong grandparents in my life as well. They kind of steered me along the right path. And so one of the things that I struggled with personally was connecting with people that didn't have the same story that I had, right?
Mm.
Because people's stigma or perception of me was this guy grew up in the suburbs, never really had to work hard for things. I did well in school, kind of got everything I asked for. And so how am I going to make connections with someone whose story is totally opposite? And one of the things that I found out, Dwayne and EJ, is that when you take time to invest in the person, nothing else matters, right?
Mm.
At the end of the day, we're all individuals, we're all humans, we all have some common core. And when you take time to invest in that level, it doesn't matter your degree, whether you have one or not, doesn't matter what side of the train tracks you were raised upon. When people know that you're genuinely invested in them and
Mm.
not trying to prostitute them and not trying to elicit anything out of them without having rapport first, then everything else is just goes to the wayside.
How was it? How was it facing that stigma, that societal stigma of, I guess looking like, or coming off, or being rather being stereotyped, I guess, or judged rather, of being better than others because of your strong foundation? How was dealing with that, and what were some of the things that you went through?
Yeah. Um, and so I can remember candidly, EJ, growing up again in a predominantly multiracial community and neighborhood, right?
Mm.
So some of my closest friends to this day, Italian, Irish, Indian, Pakistani. So I grew up in that, but then in the process of that, again, I did well in school, and so I was always on the front line, and so
Mm.
whenever there were special guests, I was always going to be included. Speaking parts, whenever there was something going on in our schools and our district, I was always there. But Dwayne, it wasn't until I got older where I kind of evaluated my presence, right? Was
Mm.
I there because I deserved to be at those seats and those opportunities, or was I there because I was being used as a token black boy, right?
Mm.
Um, and so it wasn't until I grew up, EJ, that I kind of had to cipher through those things, right? Because
Mhm.
again, the report card stated it, the award stated, but I wanted to find out for myself, was I there because we needed a black face, right? And I came to the resolve that it was probably a little bit of both.
Mm.
That they needed to have someone that looked like a part of the demographic. And then I had to struggle with, did I earn being here, or was it I just being placed here? And so, EJ, to answer your question, it took me until I got older to kind of go through my life experience and say, was it something that was given to me, or was it something that I worked for? And for me, that's still the ongoing struggle for me. I can say that there are some times where I've worked hard, but most of the things in my life, and I'm going to be honest, have just been being in the right place at the right time,
Mm.
and presenting myself in a way to give people confidence, And so, EJ, to answer your question, it's still something that I'm working on. I grew up hearing my black friends and my other friends say I talk white, you know.
Mm.
One of my closest friends to this day, and I love him, used to call me an Oreo. He would say, I'm black on the outside, but white on the inside, right?
Mm.
And so navigating through that. And at one point, I just had to say, this is me, you know. Um, this is who I'm going to be. I'm not
Mm.
going to change or demote myself or diminish who I am. My presence is powerful, and I'm not going to back down from that. So there were some comments, EJ, that came from people that I knew. One of the friends said, you walk different." So it was these little small comments, right?
Mm.
You're Oreo, you walk different. I remember when I ran for senior class president in high school. Now my high school was 4,000 people.
Wow.
4,000 people, and my senior class was 1,200 people. And I ran for senior class president. And one of my closest friends said to me, he said, they will never elect a black class president. They will never do it. And so I listened to him. I heard what he said, but I didn't listen to him. And I ran and became one of the first senior class black presidents in the history of my high school. And so
Mm.
it was these small microaggressions, if you will, that I grew up listening to and hearing, that I kind of had to filter from myself. Was I going to listen to what they were saying and adhere and confine myself, or was I going to defy the odds? And 9 times out of the 10, I got myself together and say, hey, I don't care what they're saying. I want to defy the odds. And that's kind of where I've been in my life now as a 32-year-old Black man. I've done some great things in ministry. The Lord has allowed me to do some great things, even in my academic and professional careers. And at the end of the day, I'm proud of what I've been allowed to do, but I'm not going to shrink myself for anybody, So
to kind of piggyback off of that, would you say like that confidence that you have, would you say that would be attributed to like your upbringing and like having your father and your grandfathers and those uncles in your life to kind of help? Because sometimes uncles, they sometimes they'll kind of push you in ways that you normally are not pushed, whether they're making fun of you or whether they're trying to encourage you. So would you say that kind of helped you build that level of, all right, I'm just going to listen, this is who I am, you going to roll with it, or go ahead to the side?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. I will say that it was definitely my upbringing. I did not have, one of my favorite words to use is pseudo, right? I did not have pseudo relationships with people. It was a real deal
Mm-hmm.
relationship, right? So these are my uncles that on the weekend, I was with one of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
On the weekends, I was with one of my grandfathers, right? This wasn't something that we just got together for holidays. They were a constant presence in my life, and they showed me at a young age what it meant to be a Black man, right? And so their cars were always clean.
Mm-hmm.
They, just this the small things, right? Their cars were always clean. They always were presentable. They smelled good. They dressed well. They treated their wives well in front of us, right? It was, so the expectation was set. My father taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me how to shine my shoes. He shaved me the first time, Dwayne and EJ, and I said, "You will never shave me again," because I didn't realize that as black men, we have very sensitive skin. So I was walking around in school looking like a caramel punch bar, because So I mean, so all of these experiences again, where the standard was set, and so we had real life conversations. So to me, going to college was never a conversation; it was the expectation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't a matter of if I'm going; it's just where you're going to go, right? And so these conversations about how I should show up, these conversations how I should treat women, these conversations of how the family name means something, right? And so not only are you representing yourself, and when you step out of this house, you represent your mother, your father, and everyone that wears that name. And then I'm the
Mm-hmm.
oldest of 5 children, so there was a lot of pressure. Forgot to say that. I'm a big brother, and so anything that I did, my mom instilled in me, whether it was right or wrong, it was going to be right in their eyes because I did it. And so a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
pressure or a lot of the internal motivation to me was I never wanted to bring shame to my family. I never wanted to disappoint anybody, and I wanted to set a good example for my siblings and my cousins that were following behind me. To this day, I can count on one hand the number of beatings that I got. Not because I was a goody two shoes, but to me, disappointing someone was enough for me. You didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
have a belt. You didn't have to put me on punishment. And to know that I disappointed you was enough for me. And so I tried to avoid that feeling of disappointment by doing the standards that were outlined for me.
Your story and what you share, and part of what we do here is to capture those moments and men discussing the things that they go through. And it's almost like, if you think about it, does the world even know that Black men are challenged in this in this way? And it's just like, it's just amazing hearing how, regardless of what you had and how you came up, just hearing the things that you had to talk through and go through. What would you tell a young Jovan, based someone trying to come up and navigating through things in life that maybe have been similar to your experience? What would you tell a young guy, and how to come up and overcome what you've experienced?
Yeah. Um, One of the things that I would tell a young Jovan is to talk. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by talk is many times, again, because of being the oldest and just so many things that I was exposed to early in life, I started in ministry really at 12 years old, right? But
Mm-hmm.
really took it seriously but around 15. And so all of my life, the spotlight has kind of been there. I would tell myself to talk more. I really, and it's something that I tell myself now, I internalize a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get to a point where I would internalize so much that I would have these intense moments of just breaking down because I didn't want to show signs of weakness, right? I wanted to keep this persona and this picture up that everything was well and that I had everything under control. And really, there were some times where I felt like life was kicking my behind. And so I would tell a young Jovan, talk, right? And you know, not just give surface level, right? But really be transparent in those areas that you need that help, you need that support, so people know how to show up for you, right? Having those conversations doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you identify that leading side and you know kind of how to provide that support. And I don't want to paint a picture for anybody that may be viewing that my life has been always peaches and cream. I can give a very specific time in my life where I felt like I was literally having a nervous breakdown. And I can tell you how it happened, when it happened, if we have time to get into that. The year 2014, I transitioned from Kennedy Krieger to a smaller agency, making more money, I thought, and got into it to win an EJ and realized I had made a terrible mistake. And at that point, probably not the wisest decision I made. I resigned from the organization without securing another position somewhere else. And for about a year and a half, I was unemployed. College degree, pretty good resume, a good background. For a year and a half, people were not calling. I was not getting interviews. And you talking about a shot to a man's confidence, because again, I'm here in Baltimore, so had my own car payment, insurance, had my own apartment, rent. So a year and a half, it literally was week by week. I was walking by faith, and in the infancy of that, one of my closest friends died unexpectedly, and I was in the room when she died. And so I had these two things happening at the same time. My ego was shot because I can't get a job. One of my closest friends has died, and as the man of God in my friend group, I had no answer for them because I can't explain how she was well one minute and she died the next. I don't have anything for that. And so the internal pressure that I felt was almost unbearable. And that's why I said to your question, to talk, right? I was still trying to keep this persona that everything was okay and that I had under control. But literally, there were nights where I did not sleep. Literally, there were days where I would close the curtains and ignore people that were coming to check on me because I didn't want them to see me in the state that I was in. Literally days where I had no idea what I was going to eat because I didn't have money, and pride was getting in the way from me asking, you know. And so a lot of the things that I've gone through have been internal for me. So that internal work had to be really massive, right? Had to get my mind, had to deny my pride. Really just had to take it into consideration that no matter what my upbringing has been or what my pedigree is, I'm not exempt from anything. And that life experience really, 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 really grew me up to realize that it does not matter. It does not matter how much you prepare. Life is going to happen. And then the question becomes, what are you going to do when life happens, right? Who are you going to seek to be a sounding board? What are you going to do to keep yourself intact? What does your self-care look like? How are you maintaining your mental health, right? How are you going to maintain and keep going forward when life happens? And I believe that's something that happens to us as Black men. When life happens, we tell ourselves we have it under control, but most times we don't have it under control. We're breaking down on the inside, but trying to keep up our outward facade. And and so that's a lot of the work that I've had to do. Has been in interpersonal, has been for myself to kind of get away from keeping up this persona, this facade, and really asking for help and seeking that help when I needed it.
Yeah, that communication piece is a big for us as Black men. And you know, like, you know, I would say myself included, you know, because we're taught for so long, you know, and I want to call it toxic masculinity, that we're taught so long to hold things up, hold things in and say, all right, we got to be strong. We got to do this. We got to make sure that we, you know, are, you know, presenting the best version of ourselves, even though we're broken down on the inside, even though emotionally we feel like an elephant is on our shoulders, but, you know, we got to still stand tall. And just kind of being able to communicate and being vulnerable. and being vulnerable enough to say,
Yeah.
"Hey,
Yeah.
I need help. Can somebody help me?" And I think that is pivotal. It's a lesson that we're all learning and that we'll have to continue to learn.
Dwayne, yeah, and going to what you're saying, many times if you're a person of faith, that admission of needing help is compounded because I'm a black man, right? Then I'm a man of faith, and like I had to get past Jesus. Jesus gonna fix it. Okay, he gonna work it out. But what am I gonna do in the meantime? You know what I mean? And I think and we can go deep into that. But like he is going to fix it. But like faith without works is dead. So what am I
Mm,
doing in the meantime until it gets fixed? And I think
mm,
sometimes people have faith kind of we become so as the saying says, so heavily minded that we're no earthly good. Yeah, he gonna fix it, but you got to do your part too. And so like
mm.
being real with yourself about what you're experiencing, taking a moment to really accept, okay, this is really happening to me. How am I going to handle it so that it's not handling me? And that's the real conversation that we need to have as black men, and especially when you're a person of faith. Yes, your faith is important, but we're not obsolete, or we're not
Exempt.
escape from what happens in everyday life. You know what I mean? We're not exempt from it. So what are you going to do when life really happens to you and you can quote scripture, but nothing changes at that moment, right? So what's going to happen? And I think that's the conversation that we need to have as black men is like, what do you do when life happens to you and it's really, really happening to you?
Absolutely. I like that. I was thinking when you were saying that, like we become so enamored with the idea of hope that we don't want to work towards it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't want to put like you
Yep.
said, we don't want to put the time in. Like we believe it. We might believe something happened, but I might believe I could be a millionaire. But if I don't put the work in, like, all right, I got to manage my money right. I got to make
Yep.
sure I handle my finances right in order to get to that level. We believe that we're going to get a PhD, but are you doing what you need to do as far as in your undergraduate degree to make sure that your grades are good enough so
Exactly.
that you can get the financial aid? So it's just all about making sure that we put in the time and the work for what we believe about ourselves.
Yeah,
Yep.
and the
Absolutely.
the common theme that that we seem to always come across is adversity, and understanding that no matter where you come from, how you got there, adversity is a part of life. And just hearing each brother saying, as men, we were taught to deal with adversity this way, and having to have unlearned
Mhm.
that belief to really reach that plateau, and understanding that, hey, success is relative, and we're going to get to
Yep.
that place we want to be, where we want to be and when we're going to get there, but things are going to happen, and you got to kind of break down those beliefs and walls to allow yourself to get help to get through it. That's such a common theme that we come
Yeah.
through here. Such a
Yeah,
common
yeah, and
theme.
I think EJ, to your point, when we allow ourselves not to be confined by comparison, right? Comparing our stories, comparing our life experiences, comparing where we are now. Because when you compare where you are to somebody else, it's going to do two things to you, right? It's going to inflate you or deflate you.
Mhm.
And so you could be at one end of the spectrum. I got it all together compared to everybody else, or you're looking at the person that's posting a new car. Look at the person that's posting a new house. Look at the person that's posting all this kind of stuff. And it's like, where do you fall in the dichotomy? So we gotta get away from comparing ourselves and comparing our stories. I tell people all the time, comparison is the thief of joy. It will
Mhm.
rob you from enjoying what's happening in your life right now because you feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses and the Johnsons and everybody else. Comparison will rob you of what's happening in your life, what you worked so hard for, what you're attaining right now, because in your mind you feel like it's not enough, and you don't take the time that is needed to enjoy where you are, prepare and plan for the next move so that you can secure success. And especially as black men, and as much as we may not want to admit it, but we definitely look at ourselves through the lens of other people to dictate what our next move is. And again, I guess my word for tonight is intrapersonal. It takes that intrapersonal work to get yourself out of the mode of comparison, to get yourself out of fitting into a mold that society and everybody else has placed for you, to realize this is my life. I'm in charge of it. I can dictate my path, and my path is going to be the one that leads me to my destiny and not taking somebody else's. And I stress that, especially with talking to young people. I'm a youth development professional, and one of the things that just breaks my heart when dealing with young people is they feel like they don't have the opportunity to be children anymore, right? That they are rushing into preteen, rushing into being a teen, rushing into being an adult, and they don't realize that they don't have the mental capacity or the social emotional support to handle some of the decisions that they're making. And so when the ramifications and the consequences happen, they're not able to handle it. And so I tell young people, or anybody, no matter what your age is, get free from comparison, get out of comparison, and realize where you are and enjoy where you are and work to where you want to go.
Yeah, you gotta copyright that, brother. That is a perfect point. Comparison is the thief of joy, and so many people are worried about what other people are doing, what they don't have, and they're missing the point of life right now. That is a heck of a word, and I definitely think a lot of people can benefit from hearing that. That was great.
Absolutely. Jovan, is there anything else that you're up to currently right now besides? I know you did just you said you recently got a promotion, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I am one of the new associate executive directors of school partnerships for the Y in Central Maryland. And one of the things that happens all the time was when I tell people that I'm employed by the Y, they ask me, "Oh, what fitness center do you work in? What gym do you work in? Can I get a membership? Can I get a discount?" And I'm like, "Okay, we can talk about that, but let me tell you what I really do, right?"
Right.
And so the Y has like 3 houses that fall under the Y. Our healthy living, again, which encompasses our fitness centers, our social responsibility arm. We do a lot of work in our communities to disrupt social injustices, and then our youth development arm. And so I fall under the youth development arm, and I oversee now about 8 schools in Baltimore City that have partnered with the Y to provide a plethora of services. And so I am excited about this new journey. I'm excited about, again, being at a larger table to have larger influence and to have a larger voice to disrupt the systems and the practices that are in place in Baltimore City that restrict our people from being prominent and being successful. And it starts with our young people. And I could get on a tangent, but I don't know if people know that if a young person does not have what the state classifies as the standardized skills by 3rd grade, that dictates how many prisons are built in the city. If children are not at a certain place by 3rd grade, one thing's going to happen. They will not graduate from high school, and then it is proven that they will be at some point. It can lead to incarceration, right? And so my passion is to inform our families, our parents, to inform our communities of the systems that are in place that do not benefit us, and how we can disrupt them and how we can overcome them. Again, if a child by 3rd grade is not at a state level, it is indicated that data suggests they will not graduate from high school. And then that data is submitted to the state to kind of do a projection of how many jail cells are going to be needed. And so these are some of the things that that are in practice, but are not known. And it's my passion to kind of make these things known so that our youth and young adults have a fighting chance of success in this city. People love this city. Baltimore is loved. People don't really want to leave the city, but we don't do some really, really macro and micro changes. It's things, and we think about children have been out of school for a year and a half, right? And so I've seen some of the data, I've seen some of the numbers, and it can be scary at times. But when you have people that are dedicated and just really, really in love with youth and young adults, we're going to surpass every hurdle. Yep.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that they have a African American male at the table to influence.
Yes, sir.
I'm not to influence. I'm gonna say influence and impact some of the programs and some of the strategies designed to help them. I think that having that voice for them, and because you're so passionate about the youth and making sure that they get the resource that they need, I think that's going to be not only a benefit to the organization, but also a benefit to the people, for the individuals that you serve. So I want to thank you for taking on that task, because I'm sure it's not going to be an easy task. It's not going to be an easy task, especially working with the different.
We're up for the challenge,
especially work with the different individuals that you have to work with. So I applaud you for that, and just kind of continue success in your journey with that.
And thank you for being a survivor of the stigmas of society.
Absolutely. So we want to, Jovan, Brother Jovan, we want to thank you. Thank you again. I want to publicly say thank you. Now I met Jovan. I mean, I'll say I've watched Jovan probably since she's been in Baltimore, from a distance. And one of the things I love about Jovan is his heart. And I probably never, we never had this conversation before, but Jovan, I've been watching you. I love the way you serve. I love that the heart that you have for not only for the people, but for service. So I want to thank you for setting an example, even when nobody else, if nobody else say anything, I'm letting you know that I said, because my first introduction of Jovan was through ministry. I mean, just kind of watching him serve, and and the people that you surround yourself with. You surround yourself with some good people, so I know that you're a good person. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of invite you, and just kind of knowing that, like, a little bit about your story. Figured that you'll be a perfect fit for this show. So once again, thank you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you for having me, and I appreciate your support from a distance. And now it's closer, and so we're going to partner to do some really good things as well. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm really passionate about getting our young men. And so we're going to talk about some of that stuff offline too. But
absolutely,
there are some opportunities for us to really go into schools and communities to impact young Black men, and that's been added to my portfolio now too. So I'm excited about that opportunity. Yep.
Absolutely. So once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us for Unapologetically Black Male. Thank you to my co-host, Brother EJ Stewart. Thank you to Brother Jovan for coming in and sharing his story and sharing, his love and his passion for the youth, and his passion just kind of help and serve the people. Once again, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, J. Pope and Associates. We want to thank her for her support and helping us launch this effort and this endeavor. Once again, you can like, comment, share, follow us on all social media outlets. The link will be listed below. And Brother Jovan, would it be okay if we put some connecting information for you? If anybody would like to reach out to you, I will have your information listed below. Email preferable. Is that cool?
Either one. So my Facebook is Jovan L. Custis. My Instagram is JLC389. And then my work email is Jovan Custis at Maryland spelled out.org. Again, Jovan Custis at Maryland spelled out.org. All three of those are open. I don't have any private pages. I have nothing to hide, And so anybody can get in contact with me for sure.
So absolutely, if you would like to get in contact with Brother Jovan, make sure you reach out through the appropriate measures, and he'll definitely get back to you. So once again, thank you guys for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it and look forward to